They Say What They Can't Radio.
Welcome to SoulShare, a conversation focused on love, intimacy, vulnerability, and emotional intelligence. This is a different kind of relationship dialogue for those who want to make the shift from the ego-driven to more intimate, spirit-nurturing partnerships that satisfy. Because that's what Black love is. Black love is powerful. Black love is soulful. Black love is a love that you can feel. Give thanks. Greetings, this is Sesheta Khepra, the Intimacy Junkie, and welcome to SoulShare. I have two co-hosts today, Anjy Dyer-Munroe.
And this is Ant Live.
Okay, Ant, tell us about your show.
My show is a Soul Brooklyn podcast. Me and four lifelong friends. Just a lot of times we talk all the time, and then we said we need to put this on camera because it might be entertaining to someone.
Okay. Well, today what we're going to discuss, this is part 2 to When They See Us. So last week we did a show in regards to that with another male co-host. So now we have another perspective, another male perspective, which is what I really wanted to focus on, and the docuseries, because it really affected the world emotionally and socially. Everyone is changed as a result of watching this. So how familiar were you with the case?
I mean, I heard about it. I mean, at the time, I think I was a 9-year-old, and I still remember. I remember being scared, and I don't know if that was saying there. But I don't know if that was the intent. Doing things the way they did to those young boys. I don't know if it was to scare us young Black boys, but they accomplished what they were aiming to accomplish because I was scared.
Oh, okay. This part, what I really wanted to focus on was the relationship between the young men and their fathers, and that troubled relationships that men seem to have with their fathers. So when you saw those scenes between Antron McCray and his father, and then when Raymond Santana with his father, and then when, subsequently when they were released, how was that for you? And also, if you're comfortable, can you share your any thoughts about your relationship with your father as well?
Okay, absolutely. Not to be long-winded on the history of the slavery and things like that, but I remember in college learning that when slaves were brought here, in the Americas there were the Dutch and the English who were just very harsh people and didn't even really have religion or whatever. But the people who were taken to places in Central America, mostly the Spaniards enslaved them, and the Spaniards believed in Catholicism, and Catholicism was keeping the family together. Mm-hmm. So immediately when I saw that, I just remember seeing this Hispanic or Latino family, type dad and dad there, because that's what the Spaniards did during their when they were enslaving. Versus the Dutch, they were separating, they were pulling apart. And you saw that pulling apart, like it was like a bump heads between the Black father and the Black son. But then with the Hispanic father and the son, it was kind of like, it was respect, and his father was just there, and no matter what outside interference was coming, he still stuck by him. And then you saw how the police was scaring the father, and it's just like, how do Black men, how do we protect our sons when they're scaring us too, or they're hunting us down too as the fathers? So how do we protect our sons? Like, something's happening, like if I go out and a cop has my son on the ground, I'd be risking my life trying to protect my son from them, or even just trying to inquire. Like, I just see someone on top of my kid and I can't do anything. I'm helpless. And I think that they like to see a Black man being helpless. Mm-hmm. So that was just what I took away from that part. And me and my dad, our relationship isn't strained, but my dad didn't do his due diligence the entire time in my life. You know, so I don't bear any hatred for him. His guilt riddles him every day. And I try to alleviate him of that because I don't have any ill will towards him. And, you know, people, you know, had their situations and whatever it was. And, you know, as a person, I can't hold that against him because I've done some things that might have been so savory.
So you've forgiven your father for, you know, I guess for his choices because you understood what his journey was.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So when you were watching, I guess what the scene and what transpired with Antron McCrae's and his father, so you were able to understand how his father made the choices that he did.
Absolutely.
Question: did you see the Oprah Winfrey interview afterwards? Because it's 30 years later, and you see how Antron McCrae still hasn't forgiven his father for what he did. And
he can feel that way because he's the person who was. I mean, what he went me talking about his plight versus my plight are two totally different things.
Absolutely.
So what I can forgive my father for is somebody else could probably say they don't forgive, they wouldn't forgive, but for the most part it's whatever. But I just really can't see anyone I can see how most people would have ill will towards a person, because that's almost like with the youngest boy and his sister. Mm-hmm. He didn't have ill will towards her for her signing off on that. If he did, because she felt the guilt herself.
Right.
If he did, I'd understand, but the fact that he didn't is great.
He begged her, because he begged her too. She didn't want to do it.
And she was a kid herself. You know what I mean? But as the older sister, you're looking at it, you'd be like, oh, she should have had the better sense. But again, everyone was scared.
See, I don't think anybody would think that, she should have had better sense. Because even though you don't know the age of the sister in there, you just know she's the older sister.
Right.
And I said this on the previous show. It's like there is that dynamic within families where, the older sibling starts to act as the surrogate parent, even though they're children themselves.
Absolutely.
And they're forced into, with these adult responsibilities and making these choices that really they shouldn't have to make as children.
Absolutely.
And and that was a very tough scene for me to watch him beg his
I'd like to
even thinking about it, I broke down, watching that, and it was just like, okay, I had to pause because it really
I get what you're saying. No, I get
physically
it.
hurt me. There was points throughout the different parts that I became physically ill because it was just like where it was just so painful to watch that it just made me ill. And it was that's why, like, when I hear people say that they watched it all in one sitting, I'm like, wow, that's a lot, to put on yourself to do. But, kudos to those who were able to. What were your takeaways?
I wanted to mention about the father with Antron, because I was old enough during that time to know what was going on, relationships between law enforcement and our parents and our big brothers and our uncles and what they were going through. And when we were talking about culturalism, like the Latinos and the blacks and the Jews, and everyone has different, ways of being brought up.
Right.
We lost our rites of passage. So when we come here, we're not training our children that at 12 years old they're men. But in the Latin community, in the Jewish community, in the Indian community, every other community, when the child is 12, 13, they get their bar mitzvah, they have their rites of passage to show that now they're entering manhood. Yes. And the fathers respect the sons as men already at that point. But with our families and our children, we're taught to treat our children like children, not only children, but who are disadvantaged children. You're not smart enough, you're not this and that, and you shouldn't try to be this or that, you should settle for menial work and things like that. Whereas in the Latino community, it's a little more respect for the boy being a man, for him being mature enough to handle manly things.
It's when you say that, but when I was watching the scenes with when Raymond Santana came home, I felt that they did not respect him.
No,
as
the father,
because I don't even think
the mother, like, they are also law abiding. right? Everyone is also trying to fit into the white community, the white mainstream, and the Latinos also. That religious thing and the order is very important.
Absolutely.
So they respect the authority. So it's the father loves his child. He showed that. But I also saw the love from Antron McCrae's father too, because I know that if you were in juvie, if you were in jail, in prison during those times, a lot of people were railroaded. A lot of people were shafted. They were what do they call it? Like pushed into the corner. What is it called when they were set up? And a lot of times there was so much corrupt cops getting involved with gangs and things like that, and bringing people down. That there was a big difference in how a man what a man might tell his son. Mm-hmm. In Spofford, the guards and the cops, they were raping the children. Mm-hmm. Then Spofford is closed now. That's juvie. I think that's where Tyson was too. Where Mike Tyson was, but I had friends that were there with Tyson.
Everybody went through Spofford at one point.
Exactly.
It's just like all my cousins and everybody.
They were faced with molestation, harassment, getting beat up. So the father is seeing him possibly going to Rikers on a rape charge. He knows that when his son goes in there, what they would do. With anyone that goes in with a rape charge, they're gonna get, they'll be the prime victim of rape. They're gonna sodomize them.
And I guess that's why they were saying in the Oprah interview, where it's like that Ava couldn't show everything that they went through. What I mean? And she was saying that especially Corey Wise, that they couldn't show, and just even seeing the Khalif Browder documentary, you can imagine the atrocities that those boys probably experienced, and that's probably why Antron McCrae is so broken now, and it's just like thankfully the other four, their spirits hasn't been as
and they're really tying together to support each other.
Yeah, and that's really good to see. But going back to the Raymond Santana, I really wanted to say that I wasn't. I guess y'all were a little bit more forgiving of his father. I thought his father should have stood up to his stepmother.
Yeah, today, from today's day, I'm mad at I would have been mad that time too.
Yeah.
But I understand why, because he's thinking of his son already dead. Once he gets in there, he's either going to kill himself, he's going to see him.
But to watch his son, after his son had already experienced all of that, he comes home. Yeah. You're happy to have him.
He doesn't even want to face him.
And then to have these women treat him.
You're talking about Raymond's stepmother,
right?
The young.
Oh, you're talking about this one.
The younger. But see, you know what I thought it was? I thought that the father had a very young girlfriend, and I don't know if that was if it seemed like it was like some type of trophy to him and things like that, and he didn't want to kind of, I don't know, if it was to shake up the apple. I don't know if he didn't want to get into it with her, because I thought he should have stepped up. Right. As far as, I think he still showed love to his son, because his stepmother was trying to get him out of there,
right?
And he was still like, nah, he's staying here, whatever, right. Knowing that what he had gone through, but he was also thinking about his family and this other little Raymond that he had, and thinking about those things, and he was trying to balance it, and he wasn't doing a good job.
And that was a total mindfuck
to
hear that he named his new son Raymond. It's just like as if you replacing the one that's already there, and it's just like when he comes home to this family that it seemed like he didn't even know that this new family existed. So his father went on,
but it's also an honor to him, because even in our West Indian culture, when we name each other after our predecessors or ancestors, it's an honor. I know it does feel like a replacement thing.
Yeah, but if you have a Raymond Jr. and then you have another Raymond Jr., that's not how that works. I know George Foreman did
that.
But there wasn't a replacing. It was Junior, the third, the fourth. Right. It was going down. It wasn't like, oh, this Junior's away at jail. Okay, make a new Junior.
Yeah.
Or maybe the mother wanted him to be named after the father, and that's it.
Okay, well, I guess
she got a lot of what she wanted.
It just seems to me, if that's what the intentions were like it was just to honor the father and not, be a replacement. Because I have cousins like, my uncle Everett, his son, which is Everett Jr., then he named all his sons, about 8 of them.
Wow.
Everett as well.
Wow.
But it's to honor the father.
Right.
You understand what I mean? So I guess, you know what I mean? That's what it was. But it didn't feel that way. It didn't come across that way. It was just like, and it seems like even Raymond didn't feel that it was that way. Because when he found out the look, and when he saw and heard that the son was also named Raymond, the little one, it was just like he was hurt by it. So that's what I took away. It was like, it wasn't about honoring the father, the senior. It was just about, oh wow, they're replacing me. He, his room was no longer his.
Because that was a time to take a stand for the father as well. When it was time to name the small child, it was like, oh, let's name him Raymond Jr. He's like, I can't already have a Raymond Jr. Let's think of something else. Or if he's going to be anything, he's going to be. We have to make sure that we stamp the third on him.
Oh,
so we can't do that.
Right,
Instead, he just sit there and go, okay.
He just felt completely just put out. His room, everything, and then the scene before, he was just like, oh, I just can't wait to sleep in my own bed. Then when he gets home, there's no bed for him. It's just like it was devastating, to watch, how he was just being stripped, and then when he just wanted to, have sex with his girlfriend, and to be completely and totally humiliated. It was just like they really, robbing him. First you robbed him. He was robbed of his childhood. Now they're robbing him of his manhood, and they, by viewing him as still a child. So it was just almost
then the wife is viewing him as a criminal, as an ex-con. She's not even seeing that,
But she literally called him a rapist.
You
know what I mean? When he's innocent,
that was
and
sad.
He didn't do it. And even though at that time, that it hadn't been proven that they didn't do it, but just to call the child of your husband a rapist in his home, that is so disrespectful. And I thought that at that point he should have checked. She had crossed some major lines.
He had so many times where he could have stepped in and said, okay, I'm gonna let that slide. I'm gonna let that slide. I'm gonna let that slide. Then he could have jumped in, and he did this, I felt he would have been forgiven for all the other stuff he let slide. But he just let everything. He
let everything slide. He couldn't even go in the food and get a pot. It's like, okay, wow. And then it's like, he's a grown man. You know what I mean? And it's like they just took every opportunity to emasculate him, and that was for him to be re-victimized all over again. That's how I saw it.
And sorry for going back, but with the whole Antron thing, his dad. Where I feel like he could have some type of feelings towards his dad was them talking about the decision his dad made. The decision his dad made was to, in order to keep my job, tell my son to say something that wasn't true. And you have parents who sit up there and tell that the whole thing is tell the truth all the time, always be honest. And then at the most pivotal point of his life, of his childhood, it's like, oh, I'm telling you the truth, tell me the truth, I'm telling you the truth. And then you're saying, okay, keep my job or have my son lie and say something that he say something that he didn't do. And I think the way things were going were that it was a bunch of black boys being thrown into jail. So it wasn't like the possibility of your son still going to jail wasn't looming.
The policeman coerced him also.
Oh,
he had the threat of bringing up his past. So it's not only keeping his job, it's keeping his future jobs. Like he's telling him But
even then, I'm talking about from Antron's perspective. If you're still looking back on it, it's like you chose, how you're gonna look in the workforce over my freedom.
But you know what? And that's another issue. I think a lot of parents put their jobs ahead of their children at pivotal points, and it's like because there's such an anxiety
that they need something to hold on to.
Absolutely,
and the fear of losing their jobs one thing that I always, because I get into these, discussions with people where people seem to think like they can't tell their job, you know what, my child comes first. And I see it, and every time I see when we have like major snowstorms, and I see this when people are saying that they're sending their kids to school during that, like, because they're so afraid, I have to go to work, and it's like, and when I see children out there walking through snowstorms to the bus that never comes, and because their parents have already left and gone to work, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not, leaving you in the house by yourself, so you're sending them out there into the snowstorms, and, people just like, why would I went, and my mother sent me, I said, but that's abusive. That's like you don't realize that that's abusive. You can't call in and say, you know
what's
home.
crazy? I'm not gonna say where I work, but I remember we were doing orientation, and they were kind of telling us, oh, you're gonna have to dedicate yourself to this job, whatever. So it's like we all like, all right, bright to bush up, like, all right, cool, whatever. Then this girl, her son's school called, so she stepped out of the room and went to go handle the call, and then another woman walked out there and said to her like, oh, you need to find somebody else to take care of that, unless you're not trying to keep this job. And the girl kind of cowered and was just like, I'm gonna see if somebody else can pick you up.
The boss is playing a role, and everybody's playing these roles that they can't.
And then she kind of hung up and then came back in and sat down, and then was just worried the whole entire time, but all for this job. And this is a job you don't even have yet.
Right. And it's like, and we have that, and there's that layer of anxiety that always exists with us with our work, because we have to take care of the family, and we walk around with this anxiety all the time that we can't even be emotionally available for our kids in pivotal moments such as this. You know what I mean?
It's like we're prepared to always lose our children. And that is definitely a result of what we've been through here. It's like we're ready to let them go at any moment, which is
it is, but when you're watching it play out, and you're seeing, and when Raymond Santana, because even Raymond Santana's father was the same way with, I have to get to work, and then left the grandmother who didn't speak English, there because he had to get to work, and then the black cop is telling him, isn't your son more important than work? And it's like, but because we have that anxiety that looms, we always abandon our children emotionally. So, and I'm so, where you see the relationship between the parents and the children. So this story wasn't even just about, with the cops and everything. You also see the parents' relationship with the children, because even with Corey Wise and the mother, even though in the Oprah Winfrey interview they mentioned the mother was drug addicted, but I don't think it was indicated in the series that the mother was drug addicted. In the series,
they didn't indicate that she was doing drugs, that she was selling though. It indicated that she was selling, because when she was yelling at the brother, the brother who had the transgender brother. He was like, she's like, you selling out of, something about you selling out of, you're trapping or selling out of the house or something like that. But it didn't say that she was using, but
okay.
So it's kind of conflicting.
I think it might have been through the interview that I remember that she said she's been through this and she was afraid of. She's been through, maybe it was at the end of the documentary where she says it was hard for her, to get to a certain level. I think it's the Oprah Winfrey.
But at the end, but again, I don't know about drugs, but at the end of the series, she was, when she found God.
Yes.
She was saying some things, but again, they didn't show previously that she was on drugs. So when she was finding herself, I thought it was just about her finding herself with the acceptance of, what was it, Marcy, her, the
transgender. But that was, and I didn't even realize, I guess I must have missed that part. Probably I was boo-hooing so much that I missed the part where she was, actually selling drugs out the house. And then So now that you're saying it's like, okay, she's selling drugs, but they still didn't even have the money to bail him out, because I don't think Corey Wise was bailed out.
She had to be.
You know what I mean? So it's like when you think about the conditions, you know what I mean, that these kids were under, and it's like
it's one of, and a good friend of mine, like he watched someone be killed in front of him, and we were only maybe 12, and still to this day, this is my best friend. I was the best man at his wedding. He still has like the you could watch his anger, and like how quickly he is to anger, and certain things that happens with him. And I had to. This was like last week or the week before. I was explaining to him like, these are traumatic things that us as young boys, children, young black boys. These are things that we're not supposed to see. It's not okay that we saw those things, and you just put us out in school, and you just send us on trips and send us wherever, as if those things aren't affecting us each day. And then we're going to eventually grow into adults with those things still not being addressed. And that trauma, and it's not supposed to, there are kids, like, there are kids who've never had to experience that, and that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and that's why we, black people have PTSD, and we need to acknowledge, just from living in the communities that we live in, what we're exposed to, being that black in America, in this racist society, and we need to acknowledge that we all have PTSD, and I am such an advocate for therapy, and that we need to go, and then especially encouraging, our young black men to go and get counseling, which is so hard. And I'm starting to see a trend, a shift in trend with that as well, where they're being more open about their mental health and their emotional health, and seeking counselors and looking for black male therapists. So bravo, for that shift, starting to happen.
It's less corporal punishment. Like before, if your kid was tripping, you're gonna give him the beating to correct it. There's less corporal punishment now, so it's like now they're really depending more on the doctors and the therapists to help, because they don't want to get in trouble, and they don't want to go to jail, so they're sending them to the doctor. But there's a place like Bright Point. I love this place. They have great services and it's run by minorities, and it's great counseling service, and I do recommend therapy for all of us.
I mean,
absolutely.
Family
and
therapy.
Like to see in the Oprah interview where Anjy Dyer-Munroe is refusing to get that therapy, that is so because he's the one that's suffering,
see the pain.
And the pain that he's going through, and it's like he knows he's broken. His wife is begging him to go to therapy and to get counseling, and just refusing to go. And then I almost got the sense, and I don't know, tell me if you also got that. It's like he doesn't feel like he deserves to be free of that pain. It's like he's just constantly punishing himself over and over.
Well, being
that's that comfort zone thing. Even though it hurts, you're holding on to something to hold on to.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he's sitting in jail. He had nothing but time to think about that particular thing, and then you get out, and everybody's trying to get you reacclimated to society. And even as you're getting reacclimated, now that things are a little different, you still need something to hold on to. It's like, so who can I still be angry at? What can I still hold on to? Oh yeah, my father doing what he did. And is he wrong? No, but he needs help to get over that though. You can't. You can hold on to it, but you shouldn't.
And just to see the men now, and how a lot of them have, and the places and the space that they're in is so remarkable, and the level of integrity that, because a lot, outside of Anjy Dyer-Munroe, those men aren't broken. They're not. They're not bitter. They're not angry, and they could be.
But they're coping. They have their coping mechanism is totally different.
Right, and they still, because there's a quote here that's from Corey, when I guess every time he kept going up for his parole hearings, where he eventually stopped going because he says, if they don't want to hear my truth, then I don't want to waste my energy, because he wasn't admitting to anything, because they just wanted him to admit and then show remorse so that he can get parole, and he didn't do it. A lot of,
that
some people
was-
could have taken the easy route and say, I'm gonna just tell these people what they want so I can get this parole. But he's,
But see, I
That
see.
goes to show
what-
how it wasn't broken.
No, I'm saying, but that situation, I don't think he was ever that. Just with the way they went to jail, telling them what they want to hear, didn't work out well the first time.
Right,
I'm not
okay.
going to tell them what they want to hear this time.
Right.
I might as well just stick with this and just like you said, I'm a max out.
Mm-hmm.
Telling you what I want to hear. Who knows what type of thing they would have pulled had he said that. And had he said that there, they would have been holding on to it today, like the Linda Fairstein or whatever her name is. It's the same way she's holding on to it. Her and Trump are saying like, oh well, they admitted to it. Like yes, they admitted to it. They were young children. Like I wouldn't love to see it, but if the roles were reversed and it was their children in that same space, I'm sure it would be their views would be different. But they're like, well, they admitted to it. Then it's like, oh, well, they were guilty of something.
right.
So if I steal a candy bar from the store and there's a murder going on down there, I can go to jail. I go to jail for the murder, and you say, well, he was stealing a candy bar, so for the murder, it's okay. That's okay.
Exactly.
It's not okay.
Yeah, but that's how they see us. You know what I mean? So it's almost like when your parents said, okay, well, even though when you got that beating for something you didn't do, oh, but you got away with something before, so therefore, you know what I mean. So this beating you for something you got away with before, and it's that same mentality. So we have to, also be careful with, the messages that we send. So that's why it's like sometimes I think, as parents, we start to adopt the ways of our oppressors, and then you know what I mean, and we reinforce certain, certain narratives, just like the example that I want to give was when those boys was protesting which police killing? I think it was it Freddie Gray or one of those. They was out there protesting, and then there's where the mother became famous for beating her son on camera to and I'm just like, why are we reinforcing the narrative that to control young black men, you have to use violence.
Right.
So that's an awful, and everybody was praising her. Oh, she's just protecting her son out there. Da, 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 da. And I was just like, no. If he's telling you he's out there defending what he felt was right, and then you're going out there beating him on camera because you're trying to control him and get him and to it's like you're reinforcing that narrative.
It's so powerful because when I remember seeing it and saying to like all the young boys, in my family, I was like, I looked at that situation and said, I watched, aunts and sisters that say to their sons, like, make sure you act right in the street because I'm not going to always be there with you. Mm-hmm. So when that boy was out there doing what he felt was right, he was doing what he felt was right for himself. Because he's going to be out there with a police interaction one time when you're not with him. So let him stand up for himself. Instead, she was policing him as well.
Right, and you're beating out his warrior spirit.
Yeah, and that's
it's
exactly what that
and
is.
it's like we want our young men to have that warrior spirit, to be out there and fight. And as a woman, you're supposed to support that energy, and you're supposed to support
you were beating him, making him submissive.
Yeah,
making him submissive.
You're doing the Brock break.
Right,
You're doing that.
right, and it's like
Exactly.
we don't even understand. How what we're doing, and to our children, we have to be, and that's why I'm so grateful that this show is opening this conversation so that and everybody's talking about it. So now that everybody can see and hear different points of views, and and hear that we as parents, even though a lot of us have to forgive our parents because they did the best that they could, with what they have and the circumstances that they were in.
Absolutely.
We all got work to do. You know what I mean? And it's like we all could stand to do better. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I don't want that the only thing that people see.
Law has to for us to know law and for our children to know law is like it's imperative.
Right.
Look what happened with Corey when it came up. The topic of transferring came up, and he believed he believed that word that the guard saw, if you don't like it, transfer. The guard knows what he's telling him. And my friend Jaime Davidson, he's been transferred hundreds of times for the last 25 years that he's been in, 27 years. And that answer, asking for transfer when you can't deal with it anymore there, and they send you further away, and the law says they're trying to have you as close to your family as possible. Yet, once you ask for that transfer, they're sending you further away. They send him further up, further. Yes.
It's very deliberate.
It's so hurtful. And so when he told the one person who was giving him the right advice and protecting him, he was like, "You want to transfer?" He didn't understand that. Corey doesn't understand.
That part.
He's like, "You want to transfer?" He doesn't get weird. He didn't understand that was advice he got from another authority.
Right. Now I got you. That white savior thing bothered me.
But
that had to be real, though. They had
the
to.
thing about it is,
there were certain things that were altered in the movie. I just
you believe that was a dramatization and that wasn't real? You believe?
No. I'm just watching. I didn't like it. It could have been absolutely 100% real. It's just that he was in there and there were 1,000 black guards, and then there was this one white guard who was just like.
And that's how my friends describe Rikers. That's how they describe it.
But why does the white savior bother you more than the fact that the black corrections officers aren't protected?
No. She was just
at least he had a savior. You understand?
But I'm saying she was just mentioning that part. So I'm talking about that part. Now we can talk about because the thing that sent chills down my spine was, let me know if there's anything I can do for you.
Right. Right.
Tell
me what you're going to do for me. Tell me what you can do for me. What can you do for me?
Yes. What can you do for me? Tell me your thoughts on that, because
I'm saying that part I was only addressing just what we were talking about. That was way crazier. That I'm like, because of course with me saying that his white savior, and then all the black dudes got the nerve to be in there raping the boys.
That's what they.
No.
They get broken when they have to when they do that code. We always talk about that code of honor thing. They're broken like on a football team. They get everything. They get broken. All the hazing. They got all the hazing. They get broken. Right. Those black guys, we're lucky when we see one that is still holds strong. I have friends that are cops that are still my friend. I can still trust them to be the person I grew up with.
And that because I know a lot of correction officers, male and female correction officers, and and a couple of cops. And after the Khalif Browder thing, I started to look at all of them sideways, because it's just like, how? Why? How can you? And then, I've seen some of them say, well, you don't understand what it's like to be in that environment.
We used to call it Uncle Tom, and now we know that it wasn't Uncle Tom that did that crime. It was
like, what it's like.
It's a real story, Uncle Tom.
And I have friends, who went to, prison and and they're just like, when all of this was coming up, it's just like, how do you think the contraband and how do you think all of that stuff get into prison? It's the COs. They're bringing in all that shit. So now, when you think about, and when we want to talk about the corrupt system, you're part of the corruption. You understand? So let's not just point the fingers at the white element of the corruption. When you have brothers and sisters who are also part of the system and part of the team that is maintaining that status quo, I look at them and I'm saying to them, why aren't you guarding your brothers and sisters that's behind those bars? Absolutely. Why aren't you protecting them when you know that, some of these boys are innocent? You're on the inside.
Because it's not even brothers and sisters, it's babies. Babies.
Why aren't you protecting them? You're just going on because of that fear of losing your job. At what point does integrity come into play? Absolutely. At what point does your soul say, I can't do this? You know what I mean? It's like everybody else protects their own. You know what I mean? And it's like, why are we so awful at protecting our own? And we can talk about white people and what they're doing to us within the system, but we already know they have no vested interest
help.
in
They
protecting.
can't do it without
You're
the
there.
agents.
Exactly.
Can't do it without the agents with our-
You
in
understand
our
what I'm
skin
saying?
color.
When we sit up there and we talk about R. Kelly, well, R. Kelly couldn't accomplish what he could accomplish
Yeah.
without
Without his whole
everybody.
crew.
They can't accomplish what they're doing without us. You know, so when are we going to talk about that role that we play in it? You know what I mean? Because the only way that we can stop it is when we decide that we're not going to take
I'm
it
trying to
anymore.
remember what's the word. What we saying? Condition. But again, it's one of those things that we're conditioned to do, and until we realize that we have to break the cycle,
paradigm,
and get past it, which is what that mother who beat her kid, he was on his way, and then she beat it right out of him and put it on
Right.
display. He
And
was
put
on
it on
his way,
display.
at least for himself. Who knows what impact it would have had later on?
You didn't even need the cop in riot gear and tear gas to beat it out of him because his mama did it. You know what I mean? So it's like, when they're behind bars, you don't need the white COs, the black COs is doing it. So it's just like, we have to have a level of accountability with what it is that we're doing. And once we start having these conversations and we start to realize, our role, and that's why with this, everybody needs to, to talk and discuss that so that we can sit up there and say, you know what, enough is enough. And go ahead.
No, I was just saying that, we're talking about that, we're talking about 30 years later, and I'm ashamed to not remember his name, but the Howard Beach thing that's going on with the young man who
Chanel Lewis.
Yeah, when he it seems somewhat similar. If the facts come out differently and some definitive evidence by some independent person comes out and says that he actually did it, that's different. But until then, it just seems like a repeat, just a repeat of it. And and you just look at him and you just be like, and I said when I saw on the Conduit and on other places $200,000 reward in this white girl's face, I was like, somebody's going to pay for that. Somebody, the right person, the wrong person, whoever, somebody's going to pay for it. That's all I was saying to myself.
I didn't even see that. Now,
no, it might still be up though. If you go on the South Conduit, it's still up there. $200,000 reward, and it has her face for anybody with any information.
And
so
what?
I was just like, oh my God, somebody's gonna. And just like when they see us in this situation, I was like, it could have been me strolling, really going for a regular stroll, and they'd be like, you know what?
And you know what?
You're a good candidate for this.
When you start seeing stuff like that, then you know that's the setup. You know what I mean? Because they're going a little bit hard.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? To sit up there and put up those signs, it's like, that means that there's some corruption. That's why the people said when the father called in, his cop friends, and all of a sudden now they knew exactly where the body is. It's just like, we know what that is already. The black community already know what that is. It's like, okay, like you said, somebody's going down, and that's that bullshit. I recently watched the 7-5 documentary on the 75th precinct.
Officer Dowd, yeah.
I live in I was born and raised in East New York, and it's like some of those things, I remember, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's just these cops.
I know.
It's so amazing, and they're just the level when you see Michael Dowd and his attitude, even in the interviews, they're psychotic. They have no level of remorse. They don't even think that what they're doing is it's like they just walk around and like, this is just the okie doke.
And that blue line is so thick that people are still calling the other cop a rat. For doing the right thing. I mean, after doing the wrong thing, then turning around doing the right thing, and then you just say like, oh, he's a rat, as opposed to saying like, he decided as a human that his conscience was getting the best of him, and what they were doing was wrong, and he decided to tell.
Right, exactly. And now he's ostracized and he's not respected because he's doing the right thing. And that just goes to show you that how there's such doing the right thing. There is no honor in that anymore. You know what I mean? It's like when you do the right thing, like, snitches nobody.
Remember when they had remember there's a name, which I don't remember, for the type of interrogation that they gave the children. Remember they were saying, oh, that has been that has been thrown out,
Yeah,
right? And then the other cop goes, I don't even know what the hell is that? I don't know what you're talking about. You have sets and groups that have no education, so, as far as that goes, and they're just there to make their check and do what they're told. But they're trained like special ops where they're brainwashed into this whole, we shoot these people this way, and it's always the black man's face on that, at that gun range, and as the bad guy, as the thug.
We have to
At that same time, during that time, sorry, Robert, during that time in 80, remember in the Post and all the newspapers, the black man, this the young thug, the black thug, it was always that.
Right.
I remember writing into the newspaper and saying, why are black men identified this way? And when it's a white man, you don't know if it's a white man until they find out it's not somebody that somebody's son that they got to cover up for.
Okay, so we have to wrap this up.
Right.
And so, mention your show again one more time.
Okay, no, it's like I said, it's a Soul Brooklyn podcast. It's myself and Live, D, E, and Bake, and like I said, it's just a podcast where it's four lifelong friends. Friends of mine I've been friends with for over 30 years. So, which seems somewhat rare, which it shouldn't be, but it is. To have friends, for that long. But, we just talking. We guys just talking, just having fun.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this is Sesheta Khepra, the Intimacy Junkie, and we're signing out from SoulShare. Thank you to We Say What They Can't Radio. And we're out.